get right down to the corner, I take off the clip-it, and I make sure that my mitered corner looks really nice, and we might need to tuck it in a little more or pull it out just a little bit so that it ends up being nice. And as we stitch through here, I will usually use some sort of a stiletto and hold that and stitch. Okay, and now again, I have the side here folding over the second section, so that this is going to keep the second part covered up nicely, so it's going to stitch beautifully. And as I stitch through here, I'm going to try to wait till the needle is beyond, I'm going to come from this side. I want the needle to be slightly beyond the overlap, so we need a couple more stitches here yet. And I like to have the stitch, the needle in the center or slightly to the binding edge side before I lift it and turn. And I use this hover mode. Whenever you pause with your foot on the pedal down there, the needle goes down and the foot goes up so that it's easy to burp and fluff and adjust and ease things in nicely. And it's easy to turn the corner. I like this serpentine stitch. It's kind of a zigzag, but it's a little softer. It's a little more rounded, and you can adjust how wide or how narrow you are. And I keep my favorite little notes on an old toilet paper round, because if I have it just on a Post-it note, I lose it and I move it and I can't find it. So I have my favorite WiggleDitch and my favorite triple stitch zigzag favorite measurements written down on here so that I can always find it. I know, I can be a little silly. But anyway, I love lots of little helpful hints and tips. And let's stitch one more bite. Okay, so now it's more than half, and then I can turn the corner. And then again, we want the edge of the binding to be just slightly beyond the half mark, if at all possible. And we want to be able to stitch a few stitches onto that corner. Let me see if I can find another one here to show you. Oh, and you know what? This is probably this is actually my first corner, so let's stitch through it first. Far enough so you can see it. It's hard to do one-handed and watching in the camera and everything else. Okay, we're going to stop right there. And now, can we see this over here? So I have stitched, I'm going to have to take a photo and insert it here so you can see this. But we want the zigzag, the serpentine, to stitch over and around and beyond so that it covers a little bit of this fold, and then continue on. I'll take a still photo so you can see it better. I can't focus it very well here. But anyway, oh my goodness, I love this floral print, and I love bias binding. Yeah. Once I went to bias, I never went back to regular width of fabric binding. This always looks beautiful. Okay, a few little tricks. If you see this little line in the center of the foot, I try to keep the edge of the binding pretty close to that. I use the serpentine stitch to secure and finish by machine when I'm doing binding, and I try to keep the center just slightly more onto the binding than onto the quilt. That way there's a little bit that goes onto the quilt, but most of it stays on the binding. And oh my goodness, it looks so cute on the back side, and it looks gorgeous on the front side. This is my favorite way to finish binding on a quilt. is by machine, and I use 2.5-inch bias binding strips. That way I can attach it with a 1/4-inch foot on the back side and then wrap it around to the front, and that way I can watch where I'm stitching so that I don't have some indiscrepancies, some inconsistencies as to where that stitch line is on the front of the quilt, where the binding edge is. And that way I don't have a little loose flap on the back side. It just looks really nice. Now, you might be able to see some of my basting stitches on here too, and I can easily pull them out once everything is done. I like to baste the edges of my quilts while it's still on the long arm frame with about a 1/4-inch, 4 stitches per inch, so that it holds it nicely for the binding, and then if it shows at all after I put the binding on, I can take that off, and it will look absolutely gorgeous. But yes, I oftentimes use quite a bit of meandering. I do a lot of WiggleDitch on my ditch stitching, and I will oftentimes put a few little flowers and things when I'm stopping and starting my meanders. And I will oftentimes adjust the size of the digital design for a meander so that it's not always consistent. So on some borders, I've got it a little longer and shorter. Other sections, I will make it a little bit narrower and taller so that it looks a little different throughout the quilt. And that way I can use my own meandering also. And because there is a little bit of inconsistency with the meander, it all looks gorgeous, and it plays well together. So if I have a section where I want to go around something or fit in between, instead of cropping a digital design for the meander, I will do as much as I can with the computer because it's quicker and easier and more consistent. But I can then throw in a little bit of FreeMotion meandering and have a cute little start and stop to it, and it just looks so pretty. Yeah, and then you finish it off with a WiggleDitch on the binding as well, and it is very secure, it's strong, it's forgiving, and it's beautiful. And with regular binding, a lot of times people try to keep it looking very clean and you don't see the stitching, but I love actually seeing the WiggleDitch on the other side of the quilt. Now, sometimes I attach it to the front and bring it around to the back and stitch from the back so that I know exactly where it is. And then this pretty little extra, this little outline, this little echo will be on the front of the quilt. So depending on the quilt, yeah, sometimes I do it from the back and put it to the front, and sometimes I stitch it on the front and bring it to the back, depending on where I want this pretty little stitch to show. And yeah, it's pretty gorgeous. If I'm going to finish by hand, which I don't do very often anymore because my hands are getting so old and they hurt a lot. If you attach your binding to the Minky, to the Shannon Cuddles side, and wrap it around to the front, this is easier to finish by hand. If you're going to whip stitch with a needle and thread by hand, this is easier to sew on. If I attach it to the front and bring it around to the back and try to stitch by hand through these soft, fuzzy, furry, Minky, Shannon Cuddle, Fireside, all the different brands, this is hard to stitch through by hand and still have a beautiful backside. So I started attaching from the back and bringing it around to the front. Back when I still did a lot of hand stitching to finish. But even now when I finish by machine, this is my favorite technique. And I love it. I hope you'll enjoy it too. Come see me. What do you want to learn to do on your long run? Come see me, PaolaJo at CherryWoodHandDyedCotton.